this episode of understanding the physiology of the menstrual cycle. We all are very curious always to know about what actually this menstrual cycle is. How does the flow start at such regular intervals? Why does it start at a particular age which is called menarche? And this menarche is preceded by the development of the breast buds which is called thelarche. It is also preceded by the development of the pubic hair which is called pubarche. And both these combined with gonadarche, which is nothing but the development or the maturation of the hypothalamus pituitary ovarian axis, and the culmination of all these events is into the process of start of the menstrual cycle. When the menstrual cycle almost ceases completely, that is what is the period of menopause. Now, the definition of menstrual cycle is, it is nothing but an outward expression of the periodic activity of the ovaries. What does this mean? It just means that uterine mucosa, if at all, is not favored by the implantation of the fertilized egg, is shed off at the regular cyclical intervals, and this it carries along with it the blood, the debris and the part of the inner layer of the uterine cavity or the mucosa. This process is hampered sometimes because of lactation, because of pregnancy per se, when there is complete amenorrhea till the woman delivers, the period of menopause, period of anovulation, or some physiologic other interventions or pharmacologic interventions in the form of medicines. If it is not intervened by periods of anovulation, then the cycle generally occurs at regular intervals. What is the duration of a normal menstrual cycle? The duration varies, say, from 24 to 34 days approximately. It depends on the time of ovulation in most of the women. The flow, it does not exceed 30 to 35 ml per month, but the variations are always there. It varies from say 25 to 70 ml in a particular month. But the point is, almost 70% of the menstrual blood is shed during the first 2 days of the menstrual cycle. So the regularity of the menstrual cycle, the flow or the cyclicity of the menstrual cycle, and the duration, for how many days does it last, are the three important factors which are generally considered in a normal menstrual phenomena. The menstrual cycle actually, it's a complex phenomena, and it is because of the neural and humoral, that is hormonal changes occurring in a specific circadian rhythm all throughout the particular month. Let us understand the sequence of events properly. There is something known as endocrinal cycle or endocrine events which occur at the level of hypothalamus, pituitary and target organ, that is the ovary. The second is the process of ovulation, so that occurs at around the mid-menstrual period in the ovaries. And the third is the endometrial factor or the cavity of the uterus which is affected by these hormonal changes. Let us understand these changes one by one. There is a small part in the brain which is called hypothalamus. Now it's a very small portion of the brain which controls almost each and every physiologic function in the human body. This hypothalamus has a control over the pituitary gland, which is called the master of endocrine orchestra. This pituitary gland has two portions, anterior pituitary and posterior pituitary. The hypothalamus, which releases gonadotropin releasing hormones, control the hormones called follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone released from the anterior portion of the pituitary gland situated in the brain. Now this pituitary has a control on the ovary to have normal ovulation cycle. Ovary releases the hormones estrogen and progesterone, and these hormones influence the uterine cavity, which in turn at regular intervals, if there is no fertilization, results in the process of menstruation or menstrual cycle is completed. Now this is run beautifully by the body by a process called positive and negative feedback mechanism. What is it? Very interesting and very simple that way to understand. I'll give you a simple example. If there is enough storage at home, you will buy things which are required so that there is place to store. But if the storage is complete and there is no more place to store at home, what would you say? In the cupboard there is no place, so now stop. So that becomes a negative feedback mechanism where the mind signals you to stop when there is something which is very much adequately available. Something similar happens in the brain. Brain notices the levels of estrogen, progesterone hormones in the blood, and if there is less of estrogen, that stimulates the gonadotropin releasing hormone from the hypothalamus to release more of follicle stimulating hormone, which results in the recruitment of the follicles or increasing the size of the follicles in the ovary. Let us understand what is happening at the level of ovary. Under the influence of the stimulation by follicle stimulating hormone, the number of antral follicles which are developing in the ovary goes on increasing. Let us understand, when a girl child is born, there are millions of follicles, otherwise primordial follicles present in the ovary. And it is said that the process of menopause starts once the girl child is born. You will be shocked to know this, but it's a fact, because out of these millions which are there at time of birth, few millions are lost already when the girl child is born, and out of those few millions, only few thousands remain, and at the end of the menstrual phase in a woman, that is around the period of menopause, say right from the time of menarche to menopause, a woman produces almost 350 to 400 eggs or the ova during her reproductive cycle. Generally, the ovulation occurs from say 9th to 14th, 16th day of the cycle. But after the ovulation occurs, the corpus luteum is formed, and the life of corpus luteum after the ovulation is generally not beyond 14 days. So, after ovulation, a woman is expected to get her menstrual cycle in 14 days. That is called the luteal phase of the cycle. So the menstrual phase is divided into the follicular phase, when the follicles are developing to the maximum size, the phase of ovulation, when actually the egg is released from the ovary, followed by the luteal phase, where the corpus luteum is formed, which will support the pregnancy in case the fertilization occurs in that particular month. Luteal phase is followed by the phase of menstruation. That is, if at all the corpus luteum does not need to support the pregnancy or the conception, then the levels of progesterone and estrogen start falling down. The corpus luteum dies its natural death, and at 14 days, when all this happens, there is less of hormonal support to the growing endometrial tissue inside. This results in the onset of menstruation or withdrawal bleeding. This is how the menstruation starts. This is also under control of the pineal gland, and pineal gland is nothing but absolutely the master of this super orchestra what is taking place in the female body. This pineal gland regulates not only the reproductive function, but it is responsible for maintaining the hormonal milieu properly with good circadian rhythm. So probably It is the disturbance of the day and night cycle, which is what we are faced with in the modern world. Maybe that is responsible for the irregularities of the menstruation, for the irregularity in the process of ovulation, for the irregularity of the flow and the duration of the menstrual cycle. So the moral of story is the nature is always with us. We should try to be as much near the nature as possible to maintain this circadian rhythm. So you understand now, lot of stress. The reasons might be different for everyone, but the stress of anything releases the hormones which creates lot of problems for your process of normal ovulation. And this is where you land up with abnormalities in the process of the normal menstruation. We'll of course discuss all these problems in the next episode, but let us understand one more thing which is so important, that menstruation has nothing to do with God. If at all, we should be respecting the female body because it represents as though it is able to regenerate and recreate every month in such a positive way. If at all you need to prepone or postpone menses, they need to be absolutely for a valid reason, and according to me, there cannot be any reason for either pre or postponing of the menstrual cycle, because this whole process of menstruation, by now we have understood, it's a beautiful synergy model and it's a beautiful orchestration of the whole process of the hormones and the neuronal impulses which are there in the body. I think once we understand the physiology of menstrual cycle, whatever the misconceptions we have about the menstrual cycle, that it is impure, it is bad for body, it is nothing like that. I look at it as a process whereby God has given us the ability to recreate and regenerate, and it's a very, very positive sign and a positive sort of a phenomena which a female body has in her body.